Access to safe drinking water is crucial for survival. However, billions globally still lack access to clean water and sanitation. Many are forced to rely on dirty or polluted water sources, harming the health of those who consume them. To this end, we've invited experts on water and the biosphere to share their insights about how we can solve the pressing issues connected to this topic. They are Sunil Murlidhar Shastri, an independent consultant, educator, and speaker, Chandan Varshney, the CEO of OnlyHydroponics, and Mohamed Mounir, an environmental and natural resource management specialist. After their presentations, they kindly took questions from the audience.
That was a very interesting session. But before I start with the Q&A session, I'd like to thank our guests again for sharing their valuable knowledge and experience with us. And as I always say, it's step by step and drop by drop, we'll certainly make a big change for a thrivable future. So let's move on to the first question, and the floor is open. Any of our guests can answer first. My question to our speakers is, for our audience, please help us understand that what are some of the most misunderstood facts about the water that is available to us?
I think the most misunderstood fact, including myself in early days, was we have a lot of water, because we are talking about from individual perspective, and any human is consuming 10 liter, 20 liter, 30 liter, 40 liter, 100 liters. Even if you're wasting water, we are washing our car with, let's say, drinking water. We are using inflatable swimming pools for our kids. End of the day, it's only 100 to 200 liters of water. And we always believe if a river is flowing next to me, it's enough water, right? But what we don't realize that there are 7 billion people like me, right? And if everyone starts to use 100 liter water or starts to waste 100 liter water every day, what will be the impact? So I think that's something which is taking time for people to realize, that when people, especially people who are staying close to river or any water source, they always tend to believe there is plenty of water.
Thanks, Chandan. Very well said. Yeah, that's a basic understanding for all of us. I think 99% of the people believe that whatever water they can see is available to them. I'll ask Sunil to take up this question and share his views on this.
Like I mentioned in my talk, people think that water is an unlimited resource. And traditionally, because we have been getting water for free, people think that that's how it should continue forever. But what people don't realize is that when the water was for free and when the water was plenty, the population of the world was probably less than 1 billion, 200 years ago or so. And then within the last 200 years, our population has grown up to 8 billion. But the water has remained the same. There is not more water. If anything, the quality of the water has gone down. The quantity of the water has gone down because of our own misdemeanors. So that is the first, misconcept that people have, which we have to clear. And then the other is the fact that the water, so that's the quality and the quantity of water. And the other factor is that people want to use as much water as they possibly can for reasons that are not necessarily valid. For example, I have also mentioned in my talk that people in England would like to wash their cars every day, or every week or every 3 days or something like that. People like to water their lawns every day. Take a bath, for example. Taking a bath, take a quick shower is a positive thing to do, and that too once a day. But taking a bath every day is huge amounts of water. The other thing that I wanted to mention also is other misconcept that people have is that you must use drinking quality water for everything. You don't need that. You need drinking quality water only for your consumption, your personal consumption, your cooking, and drinking water, and also cooking food, and very few other things. For bathing, the quality of water can be different. For irrigating the garden, irrigating the agriculture, your industrial purposes, etc., flushing the toilets, all that water can be different. So these are some of the things that people have to reconcile with. And then they have to say that, okay, we have to be conscious about how in the beginning of my talk, I talked about saying that the water resource is finite and fragile. So far, hitherto, our concept has been it is infinite and it is indestructible, both of which are wrong. So that is the basic point that I would like to convey.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you for that great answer. Mo, can I come to you and ask for your views on this?
Okay, thank you, Karan, and thank you to other panelists. I will stress more on the quality of water because it is quite amazing that the world, that the earth is being covered by more than 70% with water. So the earth surface is covered by 70% with water, but the quality of this water is not what is needed by humans or by other living organisms. So now that brings us now to the quality, because surface water is available, but it's not available at the right quality. So what needs to be done is you have to pay attention to the available quality water, which is the fresh water, and most especially to the groundwater found in our underground water reserve, the aquifers. And this water is not found on the water table. So I think we have to take more steps into securing a right environment to make this groundwater available for the world population. In this, I'm talking about restoration of watersheds. Through this effort, we are sure that since we are using what is living, plants, to bring water to the surface, it is sure that water will be available on the earth's surface, fresh water will be available on the earth's surface in a continuous and in the right amount, because the plants are living, and so they will continuously bring underground water to the surface for other living beings. Thank you.
Thanks for your views. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts on that. I'll come to Sunil. My first question to you. During your presentation, you mentioned some stats to inform us about the importance of water. How can we better communicate the urgency of freshwater scarcity to our audience in a very simple way?
Right. So one of the things that I always tell people is, we have to go to the root cause of why we are where we are. Okay. So that is a key question that people have to address in their own minds. And this is not just about water, but this is about everything. I mentioned in my talk, and I will mention that again, that we are in a lawless society. Yeah. Lawless society means our land is contaminated and there is excessive nitrogen, fertilizer, etc., phosphates, fertilizers and chemicals, etc., being used, as a result of which our what you call as the nitrogen balance has been badly affected. The second thing I always talk about is air pollution by various means that we are aware of, and that is causing our air to be polluted and unbreathable. In a country like India, in our capital city, our AQI can sometimes reach 1,000 or even more, where the World Health Organization standard is 60. So where is 60 and where is 1,000? Again, so people are not concerned. So what I'm trying to bring here is people are not concerned, aware of the magnanimity of the situation. And the same thing with water. Excessive use of water. Basically, agriculture, as I said in my talk, 70% of water is used for irrigated agriculture. Okay. And that is only providing for the 40% of food that we get. So for the other 40%, we need even more water, which is then coming from rain and then coming from, other sources. So a lot of water is being used and then again, once that water is used, because it's so contaminated, it cannot be used for any other purpose because of our excessive use of fertilizers, chemicals, and pesticides. The basic thing people have to remember is that excess of anything is not good, which is what I also said in my talk, that there is enough in the world for the need of everybody, but not enough in the world for the need of anybody, one single person. So that is important. So we have to get down from the concept of plenty and indestructible to limited and consumable or usable. So water, see, when we studied economics, when I studied economics back 40, 50 years ago, we were told that air and water and all that were flow resources. That means they were unlimited and you could use as much of them and there'll be more of it. Okay. Fish was also a flow resource. We know how wrong we were. Okay. And that is what I think people have to consider. So I think that's my concise sort of brief answer to your question. But I'm happy to elaborate on that if you wish. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I love the sentence that you made. Limited and consumable, which is the right thing. It's not only for water. I guess it should be and everything. It should be one of the principles in life. That's how everybody can share the resources that we have available by Mother Nature. So my question to Chandan, you talked about hydroponics, the advantages of hydroponics, but what are some of the challenges that are faced by hydroponics farmers today in India?
So one of the biggest challenge, while everything we talked about is all goody about hydroponics, your crop production is increasing, your chemical usage is decreasing, water usage is decreasing. What is the cost of it? The biggest cost is the setup or the capital expenditure to set up hydroponics farm. So it's a capex heavy setup. Unlike a normal soil-based farming where a farmer just rent out a tractor and tills the soil and starts working, hydroponic setup by the virtue of it requires a greenhouse setup, which the cost of which can run into multi-million rupees, which is sometimes not feasible for every farmer to go in. And that's why companies like us, we are innovating in the field to bring the cost down and also to get more people like us to join hands and help farmers build those greenhouses, control the electricity and everything else, and use that. That's one. The second is also the education part. So it's not like every farmer in India is poor, but also there is a traditional thought process, and just this is the way I do it sort of thought process where people have been growing, for instance, potatoes in my native village, and they've been growing potatoes because their fathers were growing potatoes and because their fathers were growing potatoes. Now the soil has become so bad, and we used to learn in our education that you should do a rotation of crop, but it has been just a traditional thinking that every year we do potatoes, so we should continue to do potatoes. So there is also the education part of it, which sort of breaks the mindset cycle, which every one of us has. Everyone has to break that cycle and come out of it. People like me who were working in corporate, we had that always negative thoughts that if I leave the job and get into something else, it will impact the financial inflow, outflow, and everything. But then that some instance just breaks that cycle, and that's what we are trying to do with farmers. That you have to break the cycle and start doing something which is better. Just because you have not done it, it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yeah, thank you, Chandan. And just because you mentioned about how a single crop has been grown for ages or probably for generations, I was reading about agriculture, and not that I'm very knowledgeable, but I think Punjab is one of the state which has seen this stagnancy in terms of growing different crops. They've just grown wheat for ages and ages, and now I think they have some challenges also in the future.
So what happens, just for everyone's awareness, what happens is every crop gives something back to the soil and takes something from soil, right? Just like us, right? We give out in terms of our excretion or urine or anything, right? And we also eat. Uh, now, we as human, we always say that you should continue to eat different things. You eat some different vegetables, you eat some fruits, you eat wheat, you eat rice, right? Similarly, when we grow same type of soil, what happens is same types of crop in the soil. After a couple of cycles, the soil is left abundant in one nutrition and is lacking the other nutrition, right? Which makes it very, very difficult to grow anything else in future, and makes it a desertification sort of thing starts at that cycle. And which is what we are seeing. You brought up the example of Punjab. One of the big threat in India right now is the Thar Desert, which used to be just Rajasthan as a state, has now technically entered Punjab, Delhi, and Uttar Pradesh. It's because of doing the same crop and heavy urea usage that the soil has become sort of desert. Now you can't grow anything.
That is quite surprising to know. Thank you, Chandan, for sharing your views. I'll come to Mohamed. So you talked about the importance of odonates as bioindicators. So my question to you is, how does seasonal variation impact their capabilities or impact the monitoring of odonates?
I believe it's first of all essential that we understand the nature of ordinates. Ordinate or Odonata is one of the order of the class Insecta, which grow by metamorphosis. So Ordinata has what we call incomplete metamorphosis because it is from the egg to the larva, the nymph, and now to the adult. And now the egg and the larval phase, water is essential to it for it to grow. So water is a key component to the life cycle of organisms. Now, knowing this, we understand that they can't do without water. And so their abundance is mostly determined by the quality of water. And so let me take the case of the tropics, which have two main seasons, the dry and the rainy season. If during the dry season, a spring dries off, it means the ordinate won't have where to lay its eggs or where the larvae will grow. So it means these indicator species will be absent in be it there or in the nearest future. And so when water comes in abundance, maybe in the rainy season or during summer in the temperature region, yeah, it means now that these species have sufficient water to complete their life cycle. And so you will see them most during this period.
Thank you very much for that answer. So I'll come back to Sunil again for my next question, because we've been surrounded by different technologies now, some advanced technologies, something like AI or remote sensing. How can emerging technologies help monitor and improve water quality and access?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, every technology, and again, I mentioned in my talk, I talked about best available technology not entailing excessive cost. So there is a rider. So you can have a very good technology. There's always this debate about the best technology or high tech and low tech. We always talk about high tech and low tech solutions. Some people talk about the intermediate technology. Okay, there was famously E. Schumacher, who wrote Small is Beautiful. He was a very famous economist, and he wrote a book called Small is Beautiful. And then later on, he took that theme of small is beautiful and intermediate technology and created a company which in fact still has a shop in a major London street, on Southampton Row in central London. And he basically uses this idea of intermediate technology. Mahatma Gandhi, he went a step further, and he didn't just talk of high technology and low technology and intermediate technology, because that can create divisions. That means high tech are the Europeans, the Western world. Low tech are the Bangladesh and India of the world. Intermediate technology are the Eastern European countries or whatever. Creates a division of haves and have-nots and rich and poor and all that. Mahatma Gandhi talked of something different. What he said is appropriate technology. What is appropriate to you? What is appropriate to your needs? What is appropriate to your local situation, grassroots situation? So that is the most important technology that we have to use. So that is number one. So yes, the I talked about WICOS, World Hydrological Observation System, the United Nations Observation System. Like they have something called the Infoterra uh, global global atmospheric observation system, global terrestrial observation system, and global environmental observation system, global ocean observation system. So all these are there. Okay, so these are common feeders, and we already know, or from my childhood until now, that the farmers are much more informed. See, earlier what used to happen is they had not a clue when it is going to rain. There was a date when we were in school, we were told that 7th of June, monsoon comes to Bombay. It used to come, no doubt. It came. But nowadays, we know it's become more erratic. So now the farmers, they all have their smartphones nowadays. Most of them have phones. And their village, or at least in their village, there's at least 1 or 2 people or 10 people who have that kind of a thing where they can get a weather forecast and they can get an idea of when to plant the crop or when to plow their garden, plow their fields and start planting, so that then the rain comes and then it's all in good order. So I think those are the kind of technologies that we have to think of. So that's on one level. The other level are very simple. The other levels are simple in the sense that flushing water in the toilet. Okay, I mean, I'm just going to a micro thing. So going from a big thing, I talked about taking a bath. So take a shower instead of taking a bath. Take a bucket and mug bath. That's the best. Most Indians do that even today. Most Indians don't have a shower or bath, but they just have a bucket and mug. And you only need 1 bucket of water per person for a bath, for a daily shower or daily bath. So that is one side. But increasingly, I see that your flushes can be economy flushes. Yeah. So instead of using 10 gallons of water as it used to be in my childhood, typically those cisterns that used to be on the overhead, and they used to have 10 gallons of water, 45 liters of water for 1 flush. You don't have so many now. Our flushes are smaller, and even those are getting more efficient. Urinals, nowadays I've gone to so many places, even in India, where the urinals don't use any water. They're waterless urinals. And they're as clean and they don't smell dirty. So why use water? And then of course, irrigated agriculture. So drip irrigation technology. I have a friend actually who was a couple of years junior to me at IIT Kharagpur. He became a big time boss of a company called Jain Irrigation. Now, Jain Irrigation is the 5th largest company in the world, or not, probably it's the largest company in the world for irrigation thing, whatever. I'm not sure, 5th or 4th or what, doesn't matter. But it's a huge company, and all they do is work on this kind of improving the technology for making agriculture more efficient, reducing the inputs and improving the outputs. What are the inputs in agriculture? Inputs in agriculture are energy, yeah, fertilizers and pesticides, water, and good quality seeds. All of them are expensive. Okay. Now, how can you reduce each one of those in terms of their use, but enhance the output? I think those are the technologies that we have to talk about. So I think there are simple technologies, there are more complicated technologies, but everywhere there are appropriate technologies which are appropriate to your own place. And those are the ones that we have to focus on.
Thank you very much for sharing those views. I'll come to Chandan. And because we've been talking about technology, how does hydroponics compare with the other technologies like aquaponics or aeroponics in terms of water usage, cost efficiency, and how to improve the yield quality or the output? So how does it compare to these?
Just give you a simple data numerical value so that everyone understands. For growing cucumber, one of the most water-intensive crops, because cucumbers are largely water. In traditional soil-based farming, cucumber farming takes approximately 600 liters of water per plant. Okay. In drip irrigation, it takes close to 150 liters of water. In hydroponics, it takes approximately 15 liters of water. That's the gap, right? So a same cucumber production you can get from 15 liters, for which another farmer is doing 600 liters. Uh, Now, between these three ways, hydroponic, aquaponics, and aeroponics. Aquaponics I touched upon briefly. Let me just reiterate it. Aquaponics is a modified hydroponics setup where water reservoir, whichever you're using, is also housing fishes in it. And fish waste generated as part of that is also used as a fertilizer or a nutrient mechanism to be delivered to the plants. So instead of adding nutrients from outside, you are using fish poop to be converted into nutrients, and which then in turn goes to plants. It gives triple benefit from that perspective. You get a fish output from the same reservoir without any having any additional cost except for fish seeds to start with. Right? You reduce the cost of nutrient from that perspective, because otherwise you will buy those nutrients or nitrogen or phosphates from market, and you add it into the water. So you save that cost. Third, by virtue of all natural, uh, this process can be classified much closer to organic farming from the definition, uh, at least the Indian perspective definition. However, it does come with its own challenges. We really don't control what fish is going to poop and how much are they going to poop, whether it will have more nitrogen or more phosphate or more zinc or more boron. So the complexity significantly increases as part of it. And any live animal like fish or anything else generally has much more susceptibility for diseases than plants. Plants, by default, are one of the strongest species on Earth. We get cold, plants don't get cold. Right? They fight much stronger. So by adding fish, you are basically adding a weak link into your agriculture supply chain. And if one fish gets sick, uh, all the fishes get sick very quickly. And then that disease has a very high propensity to propagate to your plants also. So it adds the overall complexity. However, from the perspective of overall yield, if the complexity can be managed, aquaponics is hydroponics with added fish in simplistic term. Aeroponics is again one more modified scheme of hydroponics, much more advanced. However, it has very high setup cost, extremely high, and very difficult to manage. In essence, I'll give you a simple example. In hydroponics, you have water flowing and plants are suspended in some form. By any means, their roots are suspended into water and plants are absorbing whatever they need from the water, and the water is getting recycled. That's hydroponic in essence. If you want to reduce the water usage to much further, instead of having a free flowing water, you can sort of mist the roots, right? Something like we use for Holi or a barber uses for misting your hair, you mist the roots of water. It essentially gives the same output. That's aeroponic. So aeroponic is misting the roots of water rather than suspending them into water. Right? It gives advantage in terms of some of the soil diseases, some of the water-borne diseases can be avoided because there is no water as such. You're just misting them at a predefined frequency, let's say once in an hour or once in 2 hours, depending on the climatic condition. So there is no water-borne diseases or algae formation or root rot or fungal infection that can happen. But the complexity of misting it, managing the frequency of misting it, because the risk is also very high. If one miss is missed in between, they don't have any water, and the plant will dry out very quickly. So these are modified and advanced in a way from the basic hydroponics technology is still in a very nascent stage to do much in the commercial way. And hence, the way we are focusing on right now is bringing the cost down of the standard hydroponics way of working, which makes it more affordable, what Sunil was also saying. The best technology is not the technology that works, but the best is that works and at a cost which people can afford.
Yeah, very well said. And thank you for explaining all the technicalities so in a so simple way. Thank you very much. And it has helped me to understand and keep it in my mind for longer period. Thank you, Chandan. Mo, I'll come back to you again because you talked about Mount Bamboto's landscape. Could you please help us understand how the land use zoning was approached in this case? Thank you.
A land use zoning was approached based on the restoration purpose. Now, the mountain harbors agriculture, it harbors communities, it harbors spirituality, and so on. So, in agriculture, the purpose is to have agricultural produce. In community forest, the purpose is to produce wood of value for timber. In circuit forest, the purpose is to have species with spiritual values. In grazing land, the purpose is to have enough feed for cattle. In riparian forest or watershed, the purpose is to secure and preserve water bodies. And so this is how zoning was done. Zoning was done on purpose. If restoration is supposed to be done in agricultural lands, it means we have to look for the proper agroforestry technique that will help us continue agricultural production or even better produce in this land while promoting restoration. In this, agriculture needs nutrients. Since we're talking of restoration, since we're talking of ecology, we can't go for chemical nutrients. So what is done is we add nitrogen-fixing species like the acacias, like the Lucena, like the Kalyanja, like Sesbana, to these systems. In doing this, we bring nitrogen-fixing species, bring nitrogen to the agricultural systems, and now we continue the action of restoration in this system. So we are doing agricultural production and restoration at the same time. That's the same thing with grazing land. When land are being determined, are being affected for grazing, it means the main purpose is to feed cattle, livestock in general. So livestock need the grass, and since the temperature in the tropics within the Momabutos can be harsh, it means we also need to secure a shade for these cattle. And now we can establish sheds by building roofs and so on. But that's not the best thing to do. The best thing to do is now to add other species that will serve as canopies to these livestock, and also that will play a role in restoration. In this, we put further species down, like maybe Bracharia, and now we can do vertical optimization of this species. Maybe we add shrubs like acacia, like Lucena, and now we can now add tree species like Grevillea, like Prunus, in order to have this cattle shaded. That's the same thing with water when restoring watershed or riparian forest. The aim is to secure these these streams, these springs, or these rivers. So what is to be done is, first of all, to choose the species, because plants are living organisms, and so they will need water to thrive. And so if you choose a species that have a high water requirement to restore a stream or a river, it means you'll be depleting, because the species will not do the role in which it is there for. So we have to choose the right species. And now you have to also know that every species have a role everywhere, but you cannot choose maybe eucalyptus species to restore water, a watershed, because these species are known to have high water requirement. So if you are restoring a stream with this species, it means you are doing a reverse effect because you are simply feeding that tree to grow faster because it has enough water, and so have the purpose. It's the same thing with community forest, where the purpose is to produce root of value. So you choose the root species is of high value in the market and is of high purpose in the area. And it's the same thing with forest reserves, where the essence is to preserve species of high value or species that are scarce, species that are close to extinction. So now, in doing this, you have to choose species that will thrive in the forest reserve, species that are of high ecological values, species that are scarce, that need to be preserved in this reserve, and so on and so forth. So that's how zoning was done in this area. Thank you.
Thank you for helping us understand the zoning techniques. I have a question from the audience. So it's open to all our speakers. Anyone can answer. It's from Sudeepa Nair from Singapore. She's saying that conservation of water seems to be an urgent need with the current water crisis we see around the globe. Are there any easy, promotable, regenerative methods to improve groundwater levels? Just going beyond mere conservation?
Let me just start. I mean, thanks, Sudeepa, for that very interesting question. I mean, it is very important to realize that in environmental law, we talk about stopping at the source. You have to attack the source, because by the time it goes elsewhere, it becomes somewhat too late. So, for example, if you have water contamination, which we allow it to go into the ocean, and then we try to tackle that in the ocean, is going to be a much more problem than if you tackle at the source. I always give this example. Why are environmentalists like me promoting electric vehicles inside cities or urban conurbations? Some people say, oh, what's the point having electrical vehicles? You are getting electricity through some fossil fuel electricity generation device somewhere, and you're belching out carbon dioxide and everything into the atmosphere anyway. Yes, that is true, but to some extent it is true, not completely. There are millions of vehicles. It is very difficult to monitor millions of vehicles, but it is easy to monitor one power station. One power station can be regulated, can come under severe scrutiny, can come under, they can use all sorts of the best available technology, like I said, for scrubbing the coal, for scrubbing the exhaust and everything, and make it the cleanest possible thermal power station. Okay. And then you use a clean energy on the roads, and then that reduces the burden of pollution faced by people, like I was mentioning, 1,000, an AQI of 1,000 in Delhi. And people in Delhi today, 20-year-old men, women, 20-year-old people are having lungs of a person who is smoking for 20 years, 20 cigarettes per day. Okay? They are not smoking at all, but this is because of the pollution. So you have to stop at the source. That is number one. I'll just digress it slightly and go a little bit broader. And I'll come to the broadest thing, and then that will be my end of my answer. So if you go to my website, I say that our whole thinking has to change. So I have mentioned these things before, that water is infinite, etc. So our whole thinking has to change. The change has to come from within. And I'll come back to how the change can come from within. And each one of us has got to be an agent of change. So those are very important aspects of making any difference. And the difference can be only made not by technology, not by money. Yes, all of them help, but not by technology, not by money, not by wise laws or anything like that. The most important change can be done through education and awareness. There was a Senegalese engineer who said back in 1959, if I'm not mistaken, at a conference in Delhi, that, and he talked about the connection between conservation or protection and education. He said, in the end, his quote was in the conference, he said, in the end, you will protect what you love. Okay, you will only protect what you love. You will love what you understand, and you will understand what you are taught. And that is true for everything. That is true about everything. You will love if you are taught that the other human being is also a human being. He is not black or white or Muslim or Christian or Jew. So all of those things are just very important, that you will understand what you are taught. And if you teach from the childhood, from the very KG school, I'll give you one very quick example and then stop. My son was ill when we were little, and we had just moved to London. And a doctor friend, a very famous, well-known doctor friend of ours, was visiting us. And my son was ill, and I said, can this doctor uncle check you and see what's wrong with you? So he said, no, he ran away. He went away from the doctor. And I said, why are you not showing it to this good doctor uncle? He said, he's not a doctor. He can't be a doctor because he smokes. So in his school in London, he was being taught that smoking is bad, and people who smoke cannot be well-doers of the society. So this concept of a 5-year-old boy to relate smoking and somebody not being a doctor, so these are the things that come only from within, and education is only one. So the other things can happen. Other things will happen. We are ingenious. Human beings are ingenious, and they will come out with new technologies. There will be no more resources. Even if the population goes up, doesn't matter. There'll be enough to cope for them. But the key thing has got to be good quality education given by dedicated teachers at all levels, starting from your kindergarten all the way to your PhD and postdoctoral and everything. And you have to then, each one of us has got to be an agent of change. Just like you and me and Thrivability and Justin Morris and all that are holding these kind of sessions. What are we doing? What we are doing is we are trying to tell in our own way, in our own passionate way, in an inspired way, what little we know about our own subjects, and that's how technologies will develop, consciousness will come, and the community will improve, and our world will improve. It's a very broad answer, but I thought I'll share that with you.
No, very well said. Thank you for sharing your views on that, Sunil, and putting it in terms of like day to day, what human beings sees or feels or experience. It actually relates to us.
How can everyone. The world is full of vicious circles. How can you change that vicious circle into a virtuous circle? That's got to be always your approach.
At this time, we are running short of time, and this restricts me to ask any further questions. I was enjoying this session. Thank you for all the lovely answers that you attended these questions to. But I would request our speakers to answer the remaining questions offline. And for our viewers, do sign up to our newsletter to get access to these Q&As and any other latest updates. With that, I'll thank you all.